Hey guys, welcome back. This is Quirk Chronicles over here, and today we have What if Deku's family had ties with the villains? Before we start, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel, cause that's what keeps me going always. Alright, let's begin. The battle between Shoto and Tenya was quick. Shoto had made a giant ice wall that went up even higher than the stadium itself, effectively trapping Tenya and rendering him unable to fight. Izuku saw how sad his friend was as he melted the ice around Tenya, but now he has to focus on his battle. He's going up against Itsuka Kendo from Class 1B. She's from Hero Studies as well, so Izuku knows not to underestimate her. She and Izuku took on a fighting stance. Begin! Activate air cannon. Izuku sent a punch towards Itsuki, which the latter immediately dodged. Considering her quirk, she probably specializes in melee combat. Itsuka ran towards Izuku. I don't think so. Izuku jumped up and over Itsuka using air cannon. Izuku landed and deactivated his quirks. Now, on the opposite of where they had started, the two presidents of their classes stood straight and faced each other. The two gave each other glares. Izuku shifted to his right while still keeping his gaze on Itsuka. He took a step, the other also taking a step to her right. Soon, they were circling like two animals preparing for a fight, waiting for the right time to jump in. Then there it was. As if on sync, the two presidents ran towards each other. Activate muscle augmentation and unbreakable. Izuku punched with his right arm, but Itsuka was able to easily deflect using her enlarged left hand. Then with her right hand, she went in for an uppercut, only enlarging her hand on contact. Izuku immediately blocked with his right hand, but Itsuka was still able to push him back, and the former was removed from the ground. Seeing the chance, Itsuka grabbed both of Izuku's hands, then she threw him out of the ring. But as she expected, the green-haired boy used his strengthened arms to flung himself back within the ring. Itsuka ran to where Izuku's trajectory would be and grabbed the boy's leg while he was in the air, then proceeded to throw him out of the ring. Again, the latter used his arms to bring himself back within the ring. This time, however, Izuku seemed to have sent himself toward Itsuka's location. Before Itsuka could realize, the green-haired boy cocked his arm back and punched downwards at the ginger. The girl used her enlarged hands as a shield, but the force was still enough to crack the floor beneath her. Izuku landed on the floor, and while his foe was temporarily blinded by her own shield, he grabbed one of her hands and threw her off the ring. Izuku wins! Midnight announced as Itsuka touched the ground. Izuku ran towards his schoolmate and helped her up. You all right? I didn't throw you too hard, did I? Izuku asked.
No.
Did I? Itsuka asked. No, I'm fine. Great fight, by the way. Izuku commented. Next fighters, please come to the ring. Midnight announced, which prompted Izuku and Itsuka to get back inside the stadium. They soon went their ways to meet up with their classmates. Izuku went to the designated seats for Class 1A and watched the next matches with them. At the fifth battle, Fumikage ended up going against Mei, the girl from support studies that offered to be in Izuku's team at the cavalry battle. The whole thing went on for 10 minutes, and Mei had essentially used Fumikage as her test monkey while showing off her babies to the audience. Fumikage ended up winning after Mei stepped out of the ring, but he refused to show his face to anyone until it was time for his next battle. Achiko won against Zero in the SXTH battle. In the seventh battle between Katsuki and Denki, it was immediately apparent who would win, and Katsuki did win without breaking a sweat. The eighth battle was between Momo and Mina, where Momo won. Afterwards was the tiebreaker for Tetsu and Ijiro. Ijiro won after Tetsu's steel arms gave. And then it was time for Izuku and Shoto's fight. At the waiting room, Izuku was visited by his brother. Hey, you alright? Yeah, I'm just... How do I fight him? How do I fight Shoto? If he's my friend, and what you said were true, what do I even do? Izuku asked. Tenko took a seat beside his little brother. Izuku, you want to be a hero, don't you? Izuku looked at him. Yeah, well, the thing with heroes is that they meddle. They butt in on matters that people would usually leave alone. Believe me, Dad would know all about this with all might, Tenko said in his mind. So your friend has a problem. Then it's your job as a hero to meddle and help your friend out. Izuku nodded, trying to understand his brother's words. Izuku walked up to the ring. There he saw Shoto, eyes filled with anger that had fit his quirk. hot and cold at the same time. Izuku's brows furrowed with worry. It's your job as a hero to help your friend out. Izuku clenched his fists. Begin! At Midnight's words, Shoto immediately sprung into action, sending an ice attack through the ground towards Izuku. The latter reacted quickly and activated impact recoil on his body, shattering the ice as they touched him. Shoto followed up with another ice attack. Izuku activated air cannon and punched the incoming ice, shattering it. Shoto sent another attack, then another and another, but each attack would always be shattered either by contact with Izuku's impact recoil or by the force of an air cannon punch. Shoto was effectively pissed. Izuku hadn't used his power limb at max since that morning. His arms haven't swelled and twisted like he made them do before his stupid declaration. Not during the obstacle race, not during the cavalry battle, and definitely not now. Shoto sent another ice attack at his foe, this time much stronger. I will make you use your full power, he declared. Izuku noticed how bigger this attack was. He cocked his arm back, and the moment the attack was arm's length, Izuku punched, letting the combined power of air cannon and impact recoil in his arms shatter the ice. When the ice had cleared, Izuku noticed that Shoto was no longer where he had stood before. Before he could look around, he felt a hit-a punch on his face. Before Izuku could recover, Shoto followed up by grabbing the green-haired boy's shirt and pulling him closer for another successful hit. Izuku grabbed onto the bicolored boy's shoulders and headbutt his opponent's head, making both of them stumble back. Before his opponent could recover their footing, Shoto took the opportunity and shot another ice attack at Izuku with the same magnitude as the one he used to distract the boy. This was effective as it was able to send Izuku flying out of the ring, only recovering after the green-haired boy used air cannon to spring him back to the ring. Shoto gritted his teeth. He sent an ice wall towards Izuku, similar but smaller than what he used against Tenya, hoping this would force Izuku to use his quirk at max, while bringing his body's temperature to its limit. However, Izuku, refusing to use more than his 5 main quirks, only used 4 of them to shatter the incoming ice. Shoto clenched his now frostbite-covered fists. Despite being covered by frostbite, his blood was boiling. The absence of Izuku's twisted limbs was fueling his anger. You've been training your whole life to use them. Why don't you just use them? Shoto yelled in frustration. Why don't you use your fire then? Izuku answered. My situation's different. Different how exactly? Shoto bit his lips. How dare he flip this on me? You were treated kindly by your father. Even as he was raising a potential weapon, he still treated you like a human, and you would dare not use your full power? For what? Just because you feel like it? Izuku couldn't believe what he was hearing and broke into tears. You're not using your fire to spite your father. I'm not using my power because it's slowly destroying me. Shoto winced. If you had bothered asking what I was being careful not to destroy, then you would have known that I've been slowly destroying my body by using my quirk. Look at you. You have the ability to melt all that frostbite, but you're refusing to because of your father. Izuku's tears continued to fall. You should be grateful that the nature of your quirk lets you fight longer. Meanwhile, my continuous use of mine is slowly removing my ability to even fight. It was then that Shoto realized the full magnitude of his actions. I will prove to him that throwing away his father's training is the worst mistake he'll ever make. Shoto teared up at what he said. No, what have I done? He's my friend. Why was I treating my friend like an enemy? Shoto fell on his knees. I'm sorry, Izuku. I'm sorry, Shoto said through his tears. Izuku let out a few laughs of relief between his tears. I'm glad we're friends again, Shoto. In the end, Shoto forfeited the match, giving the win to Izuku. There. Both of you should now be fully healed, but I still recommend you to stay here. Recover Girl said before she jumped down the chair and walked to her desk. Are your bones healed as well? Shoto asked. Izuku looked at him. Yeah. Tenko noted that every time Recovery Girl heals me, they return back to normal, starting the cycle over again. And as long as I don't attack using my swelled limbs, they can stay intact. Izuku answered. The door slid open to reveal Tenko and a still bandage-covered Aizawa-sensei. You too, I need answers, he said as he walked in front of his 2 students. What was Midnight saying about Izuku's quirk destroying his limbs? Aizawa-sensei asked. Tenko walked near them and answered, "It is a side effect of Izuku using his quirk at max multiple times." "And you're?" asked Shoto. "Aizawa-sensei, this is my brother, Tenko." "Tenko, our class advisor, Aizawa-sensei." Izuku introduced them. "So you're the brother I've heard so much about. You made quite the first impression on the staff," Shoto expressed. Tenko sneered. "Glad you actually survived, Eraserhead." Tenko stated. Then he looked at the pro hero from head to toe. "Barely," he added insultingly. Shoto furrowed his brows at the young man before him. "Tenku." Izuku called out his brother on his rude behavior. Then he apologized on his behalf. "I'm sorry, Aizawa-sensei. He's always like this around heroes." "I heard," Aizawa told them. "Anything else I need to know about your brother's quirk?" he asked Tenko.
No.
"Not really," Tenko muttered to annoy and drive the pro hero away. Shoto frowned, but he accepted it as his loss. "I see. Well, I'll leave you two to rest then," Shoto told his students. Then he left. Exactly as the door shut close, Izuku hit his brother's arm to reprimand him, making Tenko exclaim in pain, "Ow!" That was for being rude. He almost died. "Tenko, be more sensitive," Izuku reprimanded his brother. "I'm sorry, he just left a really bad taste in my mouth," Tenko told him as he rubbed the part of his arm that Izuku hit. Then suddenly, Shoto asked a peculiar question that caught the two brothers off guard. "You licked him." The brothers looked at Shoto in confusion and shock. Izuku couldn't help but chuckle a bit. It was a figure of speech. It just meant I don't like him," Tenko explained as Izuku continued to chuckle at the misunderstanding. Shoto's face lit up as if he just understood. "Still," Izuku said once he finally stopped his laughing, "I don't get you at all, Tenko," Izuku told his brother. "HM? What do you mean?" Tenko asked. "I mean, you've spent most of the day with Tensei, a hero, and you're okay with him, but at the same time you really dislike All Might. You also thought that Endeavor is an asshole, but you also don't like Aizawa-sensei. How do you even discern which hero you like and which hero you hate?" Izuku asked. Tenko simply messed up his brother's green hair. "I just do. Now, let's watch Achiko's match, shall we?" Tenko walked towards the television in the clinic and switched it on. "Huh? I thought Ijiro's fight was next." Izuku was confused. "Yes, but it ended quickly. Your classmate unfortunately lost." "Oh." Izuku was audibly disappointed. "But I'm sure Achiko will fare better." She didn't. While Achiko had lasted long against Fumikage, he and Dark Shadow ended up outmaneuvering the girl, leading to their win. The next and final battle of the quarter-final round was between Katsuki and Momo. If there's one thing that is apparent about people's opinion on Katsuki, is that, due to his attitude and personality, they assume that he is an idiot. People had hoped for Momo to win this, to truly showcase the saying, "brain beats brawn." But Katsuki is amazing with his quirk, as well as smart when it comes to formulating his own battle strategies, while still retaining his signature explosiveness. Needless to say, Katsuki won. "Good luck at your match," Tenko told Izuku. The latter smiled. "This is where we part." Tenko referred to the corner. "We'll be watching, okay? Make sure you don't hurt yourself," Shoto told him. "I won't. I came this far without it, didn't I?" Izuku said, and he went his way. On his way to the entrance to the ring, he came across Ijiro, who was wearing a face painted with worry and urgency. "Hey, Ijiro, is there a problem?" Izuku asked. "Izuku, I need to warn you about your opponent. That guy, Shinso? I think he has a brainwashing quirk." "A brainwashing quirk?" "Yes. When I asked the two students who withdrew before the battle tournament, they said the reason they withdrew is because they remembered nothing about the cavalry battle, and that the last thing they remembered was that they talked to Shinso. It's the same for me. So I'm warning you, don't talk to him," Ijiro told his classmate. Izuku smiled. "Thank you, Ijiro, for the warning. I'll keep it in mind." Izuku resumed his way to the ring. When he got there, he was surprised to find that Shinso was the dark purple-haired student that had threatened 1A at the day of the announcement. "Begin." Izuku went in a fighting stance. "You've been amazing all day, haven't you?" Shinso spoke. "I bet a number of heroes already have their eyes on you, considering the impression you made in the first event." What a show-off. Izuku kept his mouth shut. HM? Oh, I see. Someone warned you about my quirk? Who was it? Izuku frowned. Maybe that blondie from the first round? No, he doesn't seem like the blabbermouth. Oh, maybe it was that red head. Yes. Even before I started a conversation, he was already blabbering about having a manly match, whatever that is. It was so easy. What an idiot. Izuku opened his mouth to answer but immediately closed it. Izuku remained in a fighting stance. Shinso looked at the green-haired boy with frustration. Then his face lit up as if he figured something out. That last boy you fought against, he's a friend of yours, ain't he? Made quite an amazing display earlier. Could have easily beaten you, but he was being an idiot and let you win, and even worse, he forfeited. He threw his chance away. Humph. He's probably so full of himself to think that he can just give this chance away to his green friend. Well, I think he's just an arrogant and entitled idiot. Shut up. Izuku's senses were suddenly clouded. His surroundings was blurry all of a sudden. He could hear ringing in his ears, and he can no longer move his body. Gotcha. The voice of Shinso's voice echoed within Izuku's mind, making him shudder. Now, turn around and walk out of the ring. Izuku's body started moving. Wait, no. I can't move. How do I get out of here? Damn it. Izuku tried to move his head to look around, but it was no use. All he could see was that his body was slowly walking towards the end of the ring. I need to do something. Gee. Izuku suddenly heard a voice. What? Who's there? Izuku saw a black figure emerge from below the ring. Then another one, and they started to crawl towards him. Give it back. More appeared behind him, inside the stadium, and at the audience's seats. They were all black figures with bright white sad eyes. Some were bigger, some were smaller, but they all had one thing in common. What are you saying? Izuku asked the figures. Give it back. Give it back. Give it back. They were all headed towards Izuku and he couldn't do anything. Before long, they were at his feet, grabbing his feet. Their touch were cold, so cold. Izuku shuddered. Stay away from me. Give them back. They continued to chant, their voices overlapping one another as they continued to grab whatever they could of Izuku. Give them back. They continued to storm Izuku, every touch making Izuku shudder. They grabbed his legs, his arms, his head, and Izuku couldn't do anything because he couldn't move. Give them back. I don't even know what you want. Let me go. All Izuku could see were these black figures surrounding him, touching him with their cold, cold hands. Give them back. Before he could leave the ring, Izuku suddenly fell back. The thud was enough to snap him out of Shinso's quirk. Izuku remained still for what felt like hours to him. His face was so pale you'd think he saw a ghost. His breaths were slow and shallow. It was like he wasn't breathing at all. Then the images of the black figures came rushing to him. The memory of their touches made it feel like they were still there. Izuku let out a bone-chilling and horrified scream. They were screams of pure terror. And he didn't stop. He just kept on screaming to the top of his lungs as his eyes teared up and accompanied them. Midnight immediately realized something was wrong and ran towards the boy. Izuku, the moment Midnight placed her hand on the boy's shoulder, the boy looked at her with absolute fear and terror. The boy's arm swelled and twisted, ripping his uniform's sleeve as it continued to get bigger as he cocked his arm back for a punch. Midnight remembered the boy's conversation with his friend earlier. This is bad, she thought. Before the boy could release his punch, Midnight activated her quirk. She watched as Izuku's terror-filled eyes slowly closed as he took in the aroma. His arm went back to normal and Midnight caught his unconscious body. Cementos, bring Izuku to the clinic. Cementos went near them and carried the boy away. Midnight stood up and announced, winner by default, Shinso Hitoshi from Class 1C. She looked at the boy Shinso. He looked shocked and scared. That's not what usually happens, Shinso told her. Midnight nodded and signaled him to go. Shinso took a deep breath and ran after Cementos. Tenko ran to the clinic as fast as he can. He could still hear the echoes of his brother's screams, just playing over and over, making him want to go to him even faster. When he got to the door, he immediately slammed it open. Inside, he found Recovery Girl and Eraserhead, as well Achiko, Tenya, and Shoto, and Izuku, still unconscious on the bed. He took a few steps inside and was immediately greeted by the words, "I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. My quirk usually doesn't do this." Tenko gritted his teeth. He grabbed the dark purple-haired boy by the neck and slammed him against the wall. The boy was visibly terrified. Tenko started to tighten his grip, making the boy whimper. Tenko stopped when his arm was wrapped by a familiar cloth. "I will not allow you to hurt any of our students," Shoto declared. "TCH. You don't learn, do you, Eraserhead?" Tenko wrapped the cloth around his right arm a few more times, then pulled Shoto towards him. The latter was shocked to find that the former was stronger than he looked. When Shoto was near enough, Tenko grabbed the hero's right hand, the one that was disintegrated before, and squeezed it. Shoto winced. "This grip, you have an interesting fighting pattern? Do you know that?" Shoto frowned at the man in front of him. "No, it can't be. Tenko?" Shoto watched as the voice of his green-haired student softened the face of the man in front of him. Tenko let go of his hand and Shoto released him of the capture tape. Shoto looked at his hand and remembered the grip of the villain that disintegrated it. Could he be Izuku? "Are you okay?" Tenko asked as he sat on the edge of the bed. Izuku hummed yes while nodding. "What happened?" Tenko asked. Izuku's face was neutral for a moment, but he immediately went pale in terror. Izuku hugged his older brother, planting his face in his shirt and letting out all the tears. "Please don't make me. I don't want to remember." Izuku's words broke Tenko. He placed a hand on the boy's hair and gently rubbed it. "Don't worry. I'm here now. Everything's gonna be all right." Tenko's voice was soothing to Izuku that it was able to calm his tears. Shoto took note of the sight. For the final round, Shinso had to go against Katsuki. Shinso was still affected by the effect of his quirk on Izuku that the moment the match started, he immediately forfeited, making Katsuki the champion. Shoto watched from the announcer's booth as All Might gave the winners their medals. All 4 winners were present. Katsuki as number 1, Shinso as number 2, and Izuku and Fumikage as the number 3. Izuku insisted that he attend the awarding ceremony despite Shinso being there, stating that not reappearing after his earlier bout would further disinterest hero agencies of him. To assure that he doesn't have any other reactions to the boy, the teachers made sure to place Izuku and Shinso on opposite ends and gave each awardee enough distance between another. Still, Shoto was expected to erase the students' quirks if something were to happen, just to be safe. All Might first gave Izuku's medal. Toshinori saw the boy's face brighten up at the sight of the medal. "Are you okay now, young Izuku?" All Might asked. The green-haired boy smiled sheepishly at his idol. "Yes, All Might. Good. You did well today." All Might hugged the boy before he walked his way towards Fumikage. Toshinori complimented the young Tokoyami as well and gave him a hug and advice. Then All Might walked towards Shinso. "Young Shinso." Toshinori's voice was calm and tender, but that didn't help in making the dark purple-haired boy less jumpy. "I would like to ask you something. Why do you think young Izuku didn't attack first?" he asked. "What? At your fight with him, he knew about your quirk and so kept shut. But why do you think he didn't attack first?" Toshinori elaborated. I never thought about it. He was waiting for you to show what you can do. He was expecting you two to enter in hand-to-hand combat." Toshinori answered. "But why? He's already stronger with his strength quirks. What made him think that I'd have a chance against him?" Shinso was visibly confused. Hand-to-hand combat is not just about strength. It's about strategy, about how you can formulate a battle plan with your advantages and disadvantages in mind, and using your opponent's strengths against them. Toshinori hung the second-place medal on the boy, then hugged him. "Think about it, young Shinso," All Might said as he walked towards Katsuki. "So, how did I do?" Katsuki asked the pro-hero with a neutral face. "You did great, young Katsuki. But your real training is about to begin," All Might said as he hung the first-place medal around his neck. "I won't let you down." All Might's ever-present smile became wider as he hugged his successor. Then he faced the audience. "While these 4 are the winners this time, know that everyone had the chance to stand on this podium. Everyone had worked hard to reach where they are now." Shinso flinched. The future of these heroes in training is bright. And with that, this year's UA Sports Festival has come to an end. As Tenko and Izuku were about to get in the car, the former's phone rang. He took his phone from his pocket and answered, "Hey Dad." Izuku looked at his brother. "Already? But what about Izuku?" "Oh, okay." Tenko handed his phone over to his brother. "Dad wants to talk to you." Izuku took the phone and placed it against his ear. "Hey, Dad. I'm guessing you just finished watching the festival there?" "Yes." "Are you okay?" "Yeah. I'm fine now. I just want to rest at home." "I see. You did great, by the way. Especially at the first event, you really blew them away, haha." Hisashi joked, but Izuku didn't laugh. Izuku, can you put me on loudspeaker?" Hisashi asked. Izuku obliged. "Tenko, on second thought, you can stay home for a few more days. Izuku needs you, but I expect you to come when I call for you." Tenko's face lit up. "Thanks, Dad." The Hisashi hung up. "Come on, Izuku. I'll cook you katsudon for dinner tonight," Tenko said as the two of them got in the car. The whole ride, Izuku just looked out the car window wearing a tired face. "Give it back." Izuku flinched and whimpered when he thought he saw one of the black figures again. Tenko noticed and immediately pulled Izuku towards him, letting his brother sink into a hug. "Don't worry, Izuku. I'm right here." Tenko rubbed his brother's back. Shoto watched as Sekijiro, Vlad King, and Hisashi came through the doors of Nedzu's office. "Nedzu, you called for me?" asked Sekijiro. Nedzu took a sip from his tea then answered, "Yes. Shoto has an interesting proposition. Why don't you two sit?" Hisashi and Sekijiro sat down on the empty sofa. "All right. What's the proposition?" Sekijiro. "And why am I needed here?" Hisashi. Nedzu looked at Shoto. He took a deep breath and explained, "It's about Shinso Hitoshi, the kid from General Studies." "Yes, my student that got second place," Hisashi pointed out. "I asked Nedzu if it is possible to transfer him to Hero Studies." The other two teachers winced. "Why? I personally think that he doesn't deserve it. The kid only depends on his quirk when he shouldn't be, and has absolutely no fighting experience." Sekijiro disagreed. "He just needs a proper teacher and I volunteered. What I'm proposing is a trial run for him. Just transfer him to Hero Studies for the duration of the internships, where I can take him in. Afterwards, we'll see if he has what it takes to permanently transfer to Hero Studies." Shoto explained. "Then what do you need me for?" Sekijiro asked. "I will assume that you wanted to check if I would take him in, but aren't you the one with an empty seat?" Shoto looked away. "It's because of Izuku, isn't it?" Hisashi asked. "Yes." His reaction was, well, according to Shinso, it wasn't the usual reaction he gets. "We saw that with the two students that withdrew and my two students that faced him." Izuku was so scared that he dared attack a teacher using his full power. Shoto explained, "I'm afraid of putting them together inside the same room." The room went silent. Tenko's eyes snapped open after he thought he heard his little brother crying. But instead, he was greeted by the green hair of a peacefully sleeping Izuku. He sighed inside. Izuku couldn't sleep well and kept having nightmares after the day of the sports festival. So he asked Tenko to sleep beside him, like his big brother used to before. Tenko gently pulled his brother closer to him as to not let him wake up. Then he smiled as he closed his eyes for a moment. His memories flashed back to so many years ago, back when he was at Izuku's position, the one who would have the nightmares and the one who would ask for their mother to sleep beside him. He treasures those memories of their mother dearly. Izuku never got to meet their mother since she passed away shortly after he was born. It was too bad, Tenko had always thought, because he would have loved her like he did. Izuku resembled Inko so much with his green hair and green eyes. That was probably Tenko treasures his little brother so much. "Tenko?" His little brother's voice made him open his eyes.
"I'm sorry, Izuku."
"Did I wake you up?" he asked as he put a little space between them. Izuku shook his head no as he hummed, then he asked, "Did I wake you up?" Tenko smiled and he answered, "No. You actually seem to have slept well tonight just like the night before. Looks like the nightmares really have stopped." Izuku sheepishly smiled. "Thank you, Tenko, for sleeping beside me. I'm sure it was uncomfortable, having to wake up with me crying multiple times." "Don't worry about it," Tenko told his little brother. Tenko happened to glance over at the clock and saw it was nearing 5 a.m. Izuku noticed his brother looking at the clock and he looked over as well. "It's still pretty early, you still sleepy?" Tenko asked, expecting his little brother to say yes, but instead Izuku shook his head no. Almost instantly, Tenko knew what his brother was going to say next. I want to go to school. I mean, I'm okay now, aren't I? I already missed a day. I don't want to miss any more of my classes, Izuku told his brother. Tenko let out a sigh. Then he forced a smile. Okay, you go take a shower and I'll go get your breakfast ready. Thank you, Tenko. Izuku smiled. Izuku stared at the door that had "Wanna" written on it. He reached for it. He took a deep breath and wore a smile, then opened the door. Good morning, everyone. His eyes widened at the sight of messy dark purple hair. His body tensed up and his mind started flashing back to the images of the black figures. Tenko. He tried calling for his brother in his mind. Then someone placed their hand on Izuku's shoulder, snapping Izuku out of his flashbacks. All right, off to your seats now, Aizawa-sensei said from behind Izuku. All the students started heading towards their seats, and so did Izuku. Izuku! His teacher's call made him stop and look back. Shoto wore what he calls a smile and told his student, "Glad to see you back at school." Izuku smiled sheepishly, then he continued to walk towards his seat. First things first. Izuku, since you were the only one in the class that was absent when your classmates gave their hero names, I will have to ask you to give us yours before homeroom ends. Izuku winced. Hero name? Please note that what you name yourself now may remain your hero name when you graduate, so pick wisely. Hero name? The rest of the class slowly went to the background as Izuku puts his focus on that two words. He's never actually thought about it that much. Most of the hero names that he'd thought of were either a copy or parody on All Might. Wait, All Might's name is derived from All Right and his quirk, right? His name truly represents him, Izuku thought. HM? A name that represents me and my quirk? My quirk is gift. The quirk to have many quirks. A rare quirk to have, for sure. All of those quirks in me. All in me. All in one. All for one. Izuku. Izuku snapped out of his thoughts and looked up to find that his classmates were staring at him. Gah! He was mumbling again. Yes, sir? Izuku asked. Have you thought about your hero name? Aizawa-sensei asked. Izuku took a deep breath and stood up. Yes, sir. Well then, what is it? Izuku took another deep breath and answered, All of one. The class was quiet for a second, then Aizawa asked, Can you tell us why you picked that name? Yes, sir. I wanted to resonate All Might's name. I realized that his hero name truly represented what he stands for and his quirk, and I wanted to do something similar. Izuku explained. Okay. But how is All of One related to your quirk? Kyuka asked. Izuku flinched. That's right. They only know about Power Limb. I kind of recalled hearing a similar name and thought it was cool, so I also took inspiration from that. Izuku explained. His classmates seemed to have bought it. Okay, you can sit down now. You can come to me to get the list of hero agencies that wants to draft you. Izuku sat down, then suddenly remembered. Huh? When did I hear that name anyway? All for One. Probably one of the joke names Tenko used to suggest to me. Izuku brushed it off. Katsuki entered Toshinori's office, where he found the latter seated at his sofa, currently in his true form. All Might, you texted me to come see you? Katsuki asked while waving his phone and shutting the door behind him. Yes, please take a seat, young Katsuki. Toshinori smiled and gestured at the seat across him. As soon as Katsuki sat down, Toshinori got to the point. I would like you to pick Gran Torino as your chosen hero agency to intern at. Katsuki was visibly confused. Why Gran Torino? He knows about One for All and you. I got a call from him earlier saying he wanted to train you personally. Toshinori's answer made Katsuki raise a brow. What's the big deal? I think I can learn as much from the other heroes. He was the one who trained me. Toshinori's words made Katsuki jump forward from his seat. His eyes widened. The hero that taught All Might? How cool could they possibly be? Okay, I'll pick him. Tenko waved bye to his little brother and watched as Izuku went inside Gang Orca's hero agency. Then he got in the car. Izuku's far away from Hosu this entire week. Good. Tenko let out a sigh of relief. He had been worried that Izuku might pick a hero agency near or God forbid at Hosu. At least he won't have to worry about Izuku getting tangled into another one of the League of Villains schemes. Twice is enough. Their dad called earlier, by the way. It would seem that Tenko only has 2 more days before he has to go back abroad. God, Tenko hates those words. He's right there in Japan. He can go to Izuku anytime, but he can't. Tenko sighed. At least, if this mission succeeds, Dad's return to Izuku will be guaranteed. We just need to get that girl. Something Izuku said earlier that morning popped into Tenko's head. My hero name is all of one. Izuku was smiling proudly when he said that. Tenko took a deep breath and pinched the bridge of his nose in discomfort. All of one. All for one. That's Dad's villain name, Izuku. What were you thinking? Tenko blurted. The chauffeur simply looked back at his master using the rear-view mirror. Tenko groaned. Izuku probably used the name because he didn't know that the name, All for One, is the name of the greatest villain in Japan. He'll be in for one awakening when he finds out. Wait, if that's so, where on earth did he hear that name? Realization dawned on Tenko. Don't tell me. He heard it from me and Dad? Tenko tugged on his chin. If that's the case, if word about a hero in training calling himself All of One spreads in the criminal world, not only in the criminal world, but in the hero industry as well, so many eyes would be on Izuku. And if, miraculously, I nor Dad doesn't get rid of him, people would get suspicious and eventually link him to us. Tenko grimaced. TCH. We worked so hard to keep him away from our business, and yet Tenko's phone pinged, notifying him of a message he received. Tenko took his phone from his pocket. Unknown sender? He opened the message to find that it was a message from Eraserhead. HM? What does this fool want? The message read, Midoriya-san, I want to talk to you about Izuku. Is it possible you can stop by the school to discuss it with me? Shota Aizawa. Tenko rolled his eyes. Adohira-san, can we stop by UA before we head home? Tenko stepped out of the car and looked at the UA gates. He glared at them for a bit before proceeding inside. He walked his way to wherever Eraserhead's office was. Was it this way? Tenko thought as he turned at a corner. It took him approximately 10 minutes to navigate around this one building. Tenko rolled his eyes before he opened the door under the sign Eraserhead. Tenko frowned at the sight that greeted him. The boy Shinso was there with Eraserhead, the two looking like father and son, with both of them wearing capture cloths in the same fashion. Shinso winced at the sight of Tenko. The latter glared at him. Shinso, can you leave us for a moment? Shota asked his student. Shinso nodded sheepishly and headed straight to the door, being careful not to make eye contact with the light blue-haired man. When Tenko heard the door close, he started, What did you want to talk about? Please, Midoriya-san, sit down first, Shota said as he went behind his desk and grabbed 2 mugs from the cabinet below. He poured some coffee into the mugs and sat down on the couch. Tenko kept his eye on the man the whole time. Shota offered the mug to Tenko. He took the mug and sat down on the chair opposite of Shota. I want to know more about Izuku's quirk. If you want me to do my job and take care of your brother, I need details. Shota explained. I see, Tenko said as he leaned back on his seat. But if that's the case, I didn't really need to be here, did I? You already had my phone number. A simple call would have been enough. Then I could have all the info you want sent to you. He pointed out. Yes. Shota agreed, but then he explained himself. But I also wanted to meet the family of the student that came first in the Hero Course's recommendations exam. I wanted to know what kind of person is someone who claims to hate heroes but let his younger brother train to become one anyway. So you had an ulterior motive after all. Do you heroes just can't fathom that there are people out there that hates you? Tenko said with a smug smile. But all right, I'll entertain you. Tenko swirled the mug he held as he answered. When Izuku was 13, he had fractured his left arm while training, which was a first. For both him and our dad, they both have the same quirk, you see. When we had the doctor check up on him, we had found that his quirk was becoming too strong for his body to handle at full power. Ever since then, he was warned not to use it at full power anymore. And he hasn't, for the most part. He then looked up to Shota from the mug. Then he added while giving the other man a bored glare. But what can you do if your brother is a huge All Might fanboy and wants to be just like him so badly that he's willing to endure all the pain brought upon by using the power most similar to that man's? But I digress. Tenko placed his mug on the table in front of them while Shota nodded, taking in the info he received. Then Shota's gaze found its way to the other man's bandage-covered fingers. What happened to your hands? Tenko frowned at the other man. Sorry, Shoto leaned forward. I was just curious. Was your quirk the reason for your hand's injuries? Is it the same with Izuku's case? Is it a destructive quirk? Shoto asked. His gaze was locked on to Tenko. The latter furrowed his brows. Tenko flashed a warm, yet ominous smile. Then he answered, No.
I'm quirkless, unfortunately.
These are simply the effects of overworking myself as a child. Shoto remained quiet for a while. Then he asked, If you wouldn't mind me asking, Midoriya-san, what is your job? Tenko raised a brow and answered, I'm in charge of an overseas branch of our family's company. Shoto nodded but remained quiet. Tenko frowned. Are we done? Ah, yes. Thank you for your time, Shoto told him. Tenko rolled his eyes, then he stood up and headed towards the door when Shoto suddenly spoke. Have a good day, Tamura. Tenko stopped dead in his tracks and he looked back the teacher, finding that Shoto was glaring at him, with his hand already on his capture cloth. Did you just call me Tamura? Tenko kept a straight face. Isn't that your name?
No.
It's not. It's Tenko, Eraserhead. I apologize. My mistake. Tenko glared at Shoto, then he eventually left the room. Tenko kept his composure as he walked the halls of that building, but the truth was that his blood was boiling. He kept cursing Eraserhead in his mind, fighting the urge to remove the bandages on his fingers and bring the whole building down. So that's why he called me here. Damn it. When did he figure it out? Tenko asked as he continued his walk to find the exit to the building. Then suddenly, he heard a familiar voice. I made the right choice, I know it. Tenko stopped, then he looked back and up at the sign over the door. All Might. The door to All Might's office was slightly open, letting the sound get out of the soundproof room. Tenko leaned his back against the wall beside the door and he listened in. Sensei, please listen to me when I ask you to respect my judgment. Ah, I'm sorry for my tone. Tenko heard All Might backtrack at the last part, making him roll his eyes. I know that I made the right choice in picking young Katsuki as my successor. Tenko's eyes widened when he heard that. Katsuki? Katsuki Bakugo? He's the new successor of One for All? The corner of Tenko's lips formed a sick smile. He moved away from the wall and continued his walk. I guess my trip to UA wasn't a waste after all.
8 Uhr morgens.
Izuku waved bye to his brother. He watched the car drove away before facing the building. He took a deep breath. Second day of internships. Izuku was a little nervous yesterday. He couldn't help but be slightly intimidated by Gang Orca's appearance, but he's actually really nice. A little rough but nice. The sidekicks were nice to him too, and he got to try out the cement guns that they have. Before he left yesterday, Gang Orca gave him a talk about staying calm and controlling his rage. The pro-hero's words rung through Izuku's head since then. When a hero is on a mission, it is important to always keep a cool head. A hero needs to know when to set aside their emotions, especially when they lead to poor judgment. And poor judgment can result to more people getting hurt. Hosu, Gang Orca's words made Izuku snap out of his thoughts. Yes, Ingenium has asked my agency to lend a second opinion on his strategy against the hero killer.
Gang Orca answered.
And I would like you to accompany me so that you can see how different agencies may cooperate when it comes to a case, since you are here to learn what a pro-hero does. He added. Izuku couldn't help his smile in. I'm truly grateful for this honor, sir. Izuku bowed. Gang Orca grinned at the boy's enthusiasm, although he probably looked even more intimidating with that smile.
9 Uhr morgens.
On their way to Ingenium's agency at Hosu, Kugo noted that the boy with him was deep in his thoughts. When Kugo took a look at Izuku's school records, he found that he came up second at UA's recommendations exam, only becoming first after a student backed out. Despite not looking like it, Kugo can tell that this boy is bright. Izuku's gaze was at the streets that they were passing, but his attention couldn't be anywhere near there. He couldn't help but think about the hero killer. Stain is a prolific fighter, there's no doubt about that, having crippled 23 pro-heroes and killing 17. The question is, was all that due to his fighting abilities alone, or was it also due to his quirk? What is his quirk anyway? All the reports Izuku read mentioned that Stain attacked first, quickly incapacitating his victims. Incapacitating? Wait, what if? Gang Orca, Do you think Stain's quirk is some kind of paralysis quirk? Izuku asked. Gang Orca was a little taken back by the suddenness of the boy's question, from just mumbling a second ago. HM? Yes. Ingenium's team suspects that Stain might have some kind of paralysis quirk, which would explain how swiftly he was able to defeat all those pro-heroes. Kogo answered. But according to the reports, Stain attacks first, right? Kogo was confused by the boy. Yes, then that would mean his quirk needs some kind of physical contact to activate, right? Kogo's mutant eyes widened. I suppose so. Then the boy's phone rang. Izuku took the phone out of his pocket and answered, Hey, Tenko.
Hey, Joes.
I'm sorry, but I have to leave now. Dad and I thought that I still have one more day, but it would seem that we didn't have enough time. I'm sorry. Izuku's face turned slightly dim, but he still forced a smile and a bright tone for the phone. It's okay. I understand. Sometimes, some things just pop up all of a sudden, right? I'm really sorry. I'll make it up to you, I promise. Tenko hung up. Izuku let out a deep sigh. Kogo just looked at the sad boy.
Kakstaste.
After some time, Gang Orca and Izuku arrived at Hosu. Two sidekicks, who Izuku recognized were part of Team Ida 10, met them at the entrance. As they were being led to Ingenium's office, Izuku couldn't help but be intrigued by how the two hero agencies are similar in some ways and different in others. The sight of a happy Izuku brought a warm smile in Kogo's face, but he just looked scarier. The group was greeted by Tensei and Tenya in the former's office. The latter shocked to find his friend with Gang Orca. Izuku? Gang Orca brought you here with him? Yeah. He thought it would be great if I got to see two pro-heroes cooperating for a case. Izuku replied. Same with me and Tensei, I mean Ingenium. Tenya backtracked. They're in a professional environment. He remembered he shouldn't be so casual, especially that his brother is technically his boss. The two sidekicks closed the door, then Ingenium spoke. Shall we begin this meeting, Gang Orca? Yes. And to begin, I would like for my intern Izuku to give his thoughts on the case. The people in the room looked at Izuku. It looked like Izuku wasn't realizing it yet, giving everyone the confused, why are you all looking at me? Look before finally realizing what Gang Orca had just said, then reacting. Me? But I thought I was just here to observe? What can I add to this case? He stammered. Izuku, would you please share with Ingenium what you discussed with me earlier our way here? Gang Orca's voice was stern. His words sounded like they were asking nicely and was simply explaining what he meant earlier, but the tone suggested that it was more of an order, less of a request. Of course, Gang Orca's intimidating appearance helped in selling what he was suggesting. Izuku understood. He tensed up and told the party what he had discussed to Gang Orca earlier, about how he believes that Stain's paralyzing quirk may need physical contact to activate. He then added, I further hypothesized that Stain specifically needs his victim's blood to paralyze them. What made you say that? Tenya asked. Well, his choice of weapons are blades, right? The survivors claim that they were wounded by his blades before they were swiftly incapacitated. What if Stain uses his blades to collect his victim's blood? Izuku explained. The pro-heroes in the room looked at Izuku in awe. Tensei had seen the same thing happen with Tenko at the sports festival, but to see it all again with Izuku. He's impressed and slightly envious of the brother's deductive abilities. These are just speculations, of course. Izuku backtracked. Speculations or not, it's still amazing, and they sound logical in the pro-heroes' minds. Even if they're just speculations, it wouldn't hurt to keep them in mind. Heck, it may even save their lives. 5 p.m. After a long day, Gang Orca and Izuku were finally on their way back to their agency. Gang Orca was supposed to be there to give his thoughts with Izuku observing, but the boy ended up sharing his own thoughts along the way. Kogo was right, this boy is bright. Izuku, the boy looked over to the pro-hero from his watching the peaceful road. Can I treat you to dinner before we go back to the agency? Kogo asked. Izuku's eyes went wide and immediately refused the offer. It's okay, Gang Orca. I'm not hungry at all. Kogo smiled. I insist. You were a big help today. I think you deserve it. While Kogo was definitely looking quite intimidating, Izuku could hear the warmth in the man's voice and quickly understood his intentions. Izuku nodded with a smile. It was then that the car went to sudden stop, almost sending Izuku flying forwards from his seat if not for Kogo bracing the boy. The driver of the limousine was mostly fine, thanks to the airbag deploying. It was only then that the pro-hero and heroine training heard the muffled screams of the people outside. The two immediately rushed out of the car. There, they were met by chaos. Civilians were running away from villains, which Izuku recognized immediately because it looked so much like Numu from the attack on USJ. Izuku, stay near me. Gang Orca's voice was tense. Gang Orca and Izuku are caught in what will soon be called the Hosu incident. 3:30 p.m. It has been a few weeks since they were driven into hiding. The moment he heard that man was interested in getting the girl beside him. The guy with the warp gate quirk almost got her, but it was a good thing he immediately deconstructed her before it was too late, and since then he has never left her side. Kai looked down at the sleeping Eri, who was covered head to toe with bandages, with only her nose and horn uncovered. Her hair was removed to make sure that man can't steal her quirk from afar. He grimaced. I'll never let you get her, all for one. Kai looked around at the other people with them in the limousine. Other than him and Eri, there was Chronostasis, Mimic, and the 8 Bullets. There were also 2 other shy Hasaikai members at the front, driving the car. Kai could feel the car slow down and then finally stop. They're here. One of the men at the front, the driver, went inside the building first. After a few minutes, the walkie-talkie of the one at the passenger seat received a message. Everything's clear. Bring them in. The man said over the line. Kai took note of it. The car swayed and moved as each of the 8 bullets took turns getting off. Mimic and Chronostasis went out after them. Then finally, Kai carried Eri in his arms and left the car as well. As a group, they all went inside the building. The building isn't anything special. Just a normal apartment building. The rooms are quite small, so they rent pretty cheap even if you don't have anyone to share the rent with. But none of those rooms is the safe house they're going to. As if, there's no way 12 of them can squeeze into one room. Kai won't let that happen. Instead, the safe house is underneath the building. The first room of the first floor is actually the entrance to the safe house, located a few meters below ground. After Kai became the new leader of the Hasaikai, he immediately ordered the members to abandon their former safe houses. Afterwards, he himself built the new safe houses, then gave the location of each to different Hasaikai members, as opposed to having a number memorize them all. It was an idea he came up with in order to lessen the chance of the location of each safe house getting leaked. One would have to either go through the entire Hasaikai to get all the locations, or get them through Kai himself, whichever one is easier. It's an almost foolproof plan. Almost. And that's what has been making Kai nervous. The slight chance that they do get the upper hand and ambush them in the location where they should be feeling safe. Kai can't be so carefree, not while knowing that the person trying to find them is the boogeyman. He has come so far. He can't be careless at this point. The sound of their footsteps echo in the lone hallway to the safe house, brightly lit by white light bulbs, letting the only door at the end be visible even from the stairs. A few more minutes of footsteps echoing before the finally arriving at the door. Kurono approached the door and opened it, entering along with Mimic. The room was dim, with only some areas lit by the light from the hallway. Kurono immediately headed towards the light switch located somewhere left of the room. Then Kai went inside, but something's amiss. Kai couldn't help but tense up. Where'd that member go? Click. The lights were on and Kai's eyes went wide. I was wondering what was taking you. On the couch, the leader of the League of Villains, Tamura Shigaraki, was sitting in a casual way, his feet even up on the table. Kai immediately dodged an attack from his right, courtesy of Stain. He immediately used his quirk on the floor, sending spikes towards the hero killer. Stain swiftly got away from the spikes as they got turned to dust. He landed just beside Tamura, who used his quirk on the spikes to counter Kai's attack, to which the latter immediately reacted by cutting off the spikes from the floor. Kai looked for the other members, but where they used to be were only the trails of black mist. Damn it. Well, that was worth a shot. Stain? Kai placed his attention to the speaker, the son of all for one. It would have been better if the first attack worked, but I do want to be the one to bring him to his knees, especially after all the inconvenience he gave us. He simply stated. The other man simply looked at him as he was engulfed by a black mist. Tamura smirked under his mask. Before we start, I'm sure you'd like to meet my father? Tamura bent down and opened the laptop on top of the table. It immediately went to a live video chat with All for One. "Oh no, Chisaki. What have you done to her?" The man's voice was full of disappointment and taunting. "That is no way to take care of a child, Chisaki. Don't call me by that name." Kai snapped back. The man in the screen replied with a disappointed and almost satisfied hum. Damn it. He should have known. That member never came back and simply communicated through the radio. That should have been a red flag. Regardless, Kai kept his composure. "You're one to talk. You only want her quirk to fix whatever happened to you. I'm sure that after getting her quirk, you'll simply throw her away. No doubt they already have the two ways out guarded. And if his brat is here, that means they're out to finish this." The man in the screen chuckled, making Kai tense. "He's laughing? Why is he laughing? What about a bet? Give me 2 months and I'll teach Eri to control her quirk myself." Kai laughed the man's statement off, and he felt Eri react to the man's words. However, is this man actually saying he'll teach her himself? And not just that, he sounds so sure of it, as if it's a matter of fact. This was what he really thought. "I bet you're scared, Eri. Don't worry. Big Brother Tamura will save you from this monster." The man's voice was eerily comforting, and Kai could feel Eri react positively and slowly fill with hope. "I'll see you soon, Eri-chan." And with that, Tamura jumped into action. At Toshinori's office at UA, the atmosphere was tense. When Naomi Sakuin had called him and told him there was a development in the police investigation of the League of Villains, Toshinori could just tell it was a big one. "Naomi Sakuin, what is the new information the police have?" Toshinori asked, with utter urgency in the tone of his voice. Naomasa looked so serious and uneasy. This new info will be such a huge shock to his friend, he just knows it. "About Tamura Shigaraki. It would appear that he is the son and successor of your arch-nemesis." Naomasa was replied with dread-filled silence and a horrified face on the almost skeleton Toshinori. It looked like the world just collapsed over him. Toshinori cowered and planted his face in his hands. "He had a son," he whispered. It took a moment for Toshinori to absorb and get into terms with this new information, but when he did, he asked Naomasa to continue since he realized there were still more to it. "Upon looking further into the rumors of All for One's successor, we found that Tamura Shigaraki first became active 4 years ago, 2 years after you beat his father," Naomasa explained. "Then the attack at USJ was revenge? It would appear that way." Toshinori remained silent. "And about Nomu?" Toshinori looked up at the other man. "What about him? Since we couldn't get any answers from him, the police resorted to figuring out who he was through a DNA analysis." Naomasa took out a folder and handed it over to Toshinori. "You wouldn't believe what we found." Toshinori's eyes widened at the contents of the folder. "DNA from 4 different people? Yes. It would seem he was concocted at a lab, with quirks artificially injected into him. It might be possible that the experiments he went through ceased all higher brain function." "Quirks artificially injected?" Toshinori was thinking. Did he find a way to replicate his father's quirk through surgeries? This is disgusting. Experimenting on humans. He's just like his father, if that's the case. Having no care for human lives. Toying with them. Turning them into mindless soldiers. Toshinori gritted his teeth. Naomasa watched as his friend's eyes lit in fury. Even if Tamura Shigaraki is only following in his father's footsteps, he absolutely won't forgive him. Not after turning humans into monster, and definitely not after attacking his students. /N. He's going to regret this statement, I promise. The fact that he is your arch-nemesis son makes him even more dangerous. A heart full of hatred and revenge will do anything to achieve their goal. Naomasa commented, to which Toshinori agrees. For 10 p.m., Stain's swords made quite the sound as he inserted them back to their sheaths. It took them 2 hours and 30 minutes to take down these 8 bullets. All because of the annoying trigger drug they used. How that brought Stain back. Stain looked over at the 3 nomas that they brought along with them. They looked a little fatigued, which means even abnormalities like them can get tired as well. Then he looked over at the other person in the room on his side with a cognitive ability. The mist man, Kurojiri, was securely tying the 8 bullets up before finally teleporting them away. To a lab somewhere, apparently. These people are going to end up as nomas soon. As Kurojiri finished up, Stain walked towards the former and asked, Isn't our leader taking too long? Aren't you worried about him? Kurogiri's golden eyes squinted. No, I am not. Are you? Not at all. Maybe a little. Kurogiri's eyes shifted, implying he was raising a brow to Stain's statement. If you're worried that Tamura Shigaraki will end up losing to Kai Chisaki, I can guarantee you that he had planned for their battle and that even before we left them alone, Tamura's win was already set.
No.
I'm not worried about that. Oh, the boy has a strong conviction that I can easily tell, but before we left him alone, his eyes, they were crazy with conviction. Stain explained, and that is bad how? The day I first met him, I saw myself in him when he said the line I often say to idiots masquerading around as heroes and villains. It was like looking at a younger version of myself. Stain paused for a bit, then continued. But on our way to this mission, and as we waited for the Hasaikai to arrive, I saw the conviction in his eyes slowly turn to madness and craze. It woke up something in me. Those eyes scared me. Kurogiri flinched. Stain? Scared? Well, if you're afraid that Tamura Shigaraki will end up losing himself in this path, I can assure you he will never. Kurogiri's eyes glowed brighter. That is because he has something to protect and care for. Something he can hold onto so that he will never plunge down an endless void. And that is why he's not afraid to let that madness and craze take over him, because he knows he can always climb back up for that something. Something he cares for? The thought ran through Stain's head. Then all of a sudden, the ground started to shake and rumble. An area of the floor some meters away from them started to crack and open. From below came Tamura and the girl in his arms. Tamura immediately went towards Kurogiri and Stain. He handed over the girl to Kurogiri exactly as Chisaki came up from the hole as well. Being elevated by a platform he used his quirk on. Eri-chan, stay with Kurogiri for a while. Okay? Tamura said in a warm tone as he patted the girl's head, without the pinky, of course. Kurogiri, as you wish. Kurogiri, along with the girl, escaped through one of his gates. Shigara kai thei. Chisaki yelled through his coarse throat, while Tamura simply chuckled. Careful with your throat, Chisaki. And you used to have such a smooth voice, Tamura jokingly stated as he brushed all the dust in his shirt off. Ready for round 2, Stain? Tamura looked at him. Stain had a look at his eyes behind the hand mask. There was no shred of the madness he saw earlier. Instead, they were shining brightly with hope. He can always climb back up for that something. Kurogiri's words echoed in Stain's mind. Stain unsheathed his blades. Let's finish this. After feeling that one big tremor, a few concerned citizens of Hosu started calling up the authorities, asking what the hell was going on. The emergency hotline was receiving so many calls, a number voicing their concern about how the following tremors seemed to be right under the building they live in. 4:40 p.m. Civilians and authorities alike were all shocked when villains came out from a building, bringing it down in the process. As the dust settled and the villains were slowly revealed, bystanders immediately started recognizing who they were. Hey, aren't those things? Nomu and Tamura Shigaraki from the news. Is that Stain? Stain is with the League of Villains, TCH. Tamura expressed his annoyance as he looked around. He got away. News of the League of Villains appearing have certainly arrived at hero agencies by now, and we have no way to contact Kurogiri at the moment, Tamura stated as he watched the civilians start to scramble. Let's meet at the rendezvous point, but for now we have to split up. Tamura told Stain. Nomus, only attack when necessary, now go. The 3 Nomus ran off. Even though Tamura ordered them not to attack when unnecessary, he never gave the orders to not cause any sort of damage to public and private properties. So there's that. Stain ran off as well, jumping around in the alleys between the buildings, while Tamura walked back to the brought-down building and made a path back in. Come on, Shoto, we're going to Hosu. Enji simply stated as he started walking towards the door. Hosu? But that city isn't in your jurisdiction. Why would you go there? Shoto asked. Shoto decided to intern at his father's agency. It was the least he could do after the stunt he pulled on Izuku. This is his punishment, having to work along with this man. The hero killer and the League of Villains have been sighted stirring up chaos there. Ingenium's agency had sent a request for help. Enji answered, Shoto side, fine. Immediately after he got the news, Tensei, along with Team Ida-10, sprinted into action to help evacuate the civilians as well as help those who had been hurt, mostly due to their own actions, tbh. But was bringing Tenya along a good idea? Even as he was helping civilians, Tensei couldn't stop but think about it. He was prepared to bring Tenya along and expose him to what it's really like being a hero, but with a villain attack at this scale happening right now, it doesn't seem like a good idea bringing his little brother along anymore. Damn it. He shouldn't be so distracted. As long as Tenya sticks by his side, then it should be fine. The hero killer. He's getting away. Tensei's eyes widened at the mention of Stain. He immediately looked at the person who saw Stain, the person who was now some distance away from him, the person who was supposed to stick by his side, but now was chasing after a dangerous serial killer. Tenya! Immediately, Tensei ran after his brother. Damn it, /n. I'm seeing a pattern with these lil brothers. Past 5 p.m. Please head to safety, okay? Izuku told a couple after helping them get out of their car. Thank you, little boy, they said as they both supported each other and went the other way. Izuku placed his attention to Gang Orca and Nomu's battle. It looked exactly like the Nomu during the USJ incident. It was black but had no bird features. Other than a fast regenerating and a super strength quirk, this Nomu seems to have acid blood. Gang Orca is having trouble defeating it. If only there were more water. Activate water cycle. Using this quirk, Izuku is able to control the water and its properties in an area, may it be in a solid, liquid, or vapor form. But for this to work effectively, he needs to have a great understanding of the water cycle, complicated aquakinesis, if you will. /n. This quirk will become relevant in the future. In order to hide what he's doing, Izuku first turns the water he can reach into vapor and then manipulate the vapor to float onto Gang Orca, where he turns them back to liquid. Simplified explanation. Kujo seemed to have realized that someone was sending water to him, but he doesn't know who. But if they're doing this, then they're probably an ally. A being created to kill All Might. Huh? Is there even a being capable of holding a candle to that man? Kugo slammed the black creature hard into the concrete, creating huge cracks. He was panting, but he was relieved to finally have brought the thing down.
Gang Orca.
Kugo looked over to the young boy running towards him. Izuku, are you all right? He asked the boy. Yes, sir. I've also evacuated the people in the area. Izuku answered. Good. Kugo said as he took a metal rod and wrapped it around Nomu. From the looks of it, the epicenter of the League of Villains attack is further into the city. We will have to go there and help. Are you up for it? Kugo asked the boy in all seriousness. This is a real villain attack, not just robots at an exam. Kugo needs to make it clear to the boy. The boy took in a deep breath. His eyes filled with determination as he answered. It is why I'm here, sir. There is no need to ask me that. Kugo smirked at the boy's remark. Very good. Tenko could hear the muffled noises of the surface from underground, his footsteps echoing along the walls. Tenko grumbled. He let Chisaki get away. What a waste. His quirk would have been a great addition to Izuku's arsenal. Not that he would use it that often anyway. He'd probably train it, but Izuku would much prefer combining his quirks to replicate All Mights than use his other more powerful and efficient quirk combinations. Maybe next time. But for today, the acquirement of Eri is enough success for him. It's probably dark out already. He should be near the rendezvous point. I wonder how Stain and the Nomus are doing. The blade spun in the air as it went flying. Stain gave the hero brothers a glare. Fast and armored heroes, the younger one took him by surprise. With all the chaos those Nomu have been causing, he wasn't expecting to be sighted, and by a hero in training, no less. Still, Tenya, don't go off on me like that. Going after the hero killer on your own was stupid. The older brother criticized the younger. I'm sorry, Tensei. You had been after this man for months. I knew you would appreciate it if I, so young but already a show-off. Stain cut him off. Ingenium, you need to be more strict with your brother, otherwise, he might end up like one of those fake heroes when he's finally deemed an official one. As if I cared about officialities. Even if they are regarded as one. If they were only in it for money and fame, then they're all fakes. Stain jumped in for an attack. He's quick, even with armor costumes, Stain's kick still packed punch, easily sending the brothers flying. There are many civilians that you still need to evacuate. Am I wrong? So why am I your priority? Stain pulled out one of his blades from its sheath. Tensei's eyes widened as he heard the blade puncture something, swiftly followed by Tenya's screams of pain. Tenya! Tensei tried to get up, but he was swiftly kicked back down by the hero killer. Stain stood over the older brother and removed his helmet. He felt his cheek burn for a bit before red came out of the fresh wound. Ingenium, you are a true hero in my eyes. You've saved so many lives and inspired others to do their best. Even when you were still a new hero, you immediately proved yourself as someone comparable to All Might. Stain told him, however, your brother needs to learn a lesson, and I don't want any more interference. Stain said as he licked his blade, activating his quirk and paralyzing Tensei. No, no, Stain, please. I beg of you. Not my brother. Not Tenya. Stain, Tensei pleaded as he watched the hero killer march nearer his also paralyzed brother. No, no, please, don't let this happen. Tenya Araya. Izuku stopped in his tracks as he heard a voice. Someone calling Tenya. Was that Tensei? Izuku? What's wrong? Gang Orca asked. Izuku looked at the pro-hero. Should he tell him? The voice is actually quite far from them. He was only able to hear because of one of his quirks. How will he explain that he heard someone scream for help some distance away from them? I heard someone scream for help from that direction, though I'm not sure of the exact location. Izuku answered, is that so? This is probably a person who can't get out of their home or got trapped. Regardless, everything seems pretty peaceful in this area now. Will you be alright dealing with it by yourself? Gang Orca asked. Izuku nodded, then ran into the alleys while Gang Orca proceeded to go to the epicenter of the chaos. Activate quirk, echolocation, and air cannon. Izuku closed his eyes and clapped his hands, letting his quirk create a mental map for him. These alleys are like a maze. Good thing I have this quirk. Okay. Left of a few meters from where I am, I can find. Izuku felt his heart skip a beat. His eyes widened at what he saw and he ran much faster.
Tenya. No.
As soon as he got to that left turn, he activated muscle augmentation and fortify on his legs. He charged towards the man who's been wanted for the murder of many pro-heroes. Get away from Hayim! Izuku yelled as he punched the hero killer with his quirk-packed arm, sending the former flying. Izuku! Your arm! I'm fine. Izuku told his friend. Izuku! Get Tenya out of here. Now, while you still have the chance. Tensei frantically told him. But what about Y-? Forget about me. Please save my brother. Tensei pleaded. Izuku was caught back by the pro-hero's words. It's as if he saw Tenko in him. That's right, young hero in training. It would be better if you just leave one of them and escape with the other. Of course, unless you want to end up dead as well. Stain said as he got back up. That actually hurt. Stain looked at the greenette but was taken aback for a second. Izuku glared at the hero killer. Their glares are uncannily similar. Could this brat be the same as he is? I will give you 5 seconds to grab one of them and leave before I chase after you. Stain told him, but the greenette didn't waver. Izuku, please save my brother. I'm begging you. Tensei pleaded once more.
No.
Tensei's eyes widened at the boy's simple answer. Why? Because a hero's job is to preserve the smiles in people's faces, to stop anyone who will try to take away their happiness. Stain flinched. Izuku bit his lips, then continued. You're just like Tenko. I hate it whenever Tenko leaves for his job because I feel so alone. I would never want Tenko to leave forever, and I'm sure Tenya wouldn't want that either, which is why I'm going to save both of you. Tensei teared up after what Izuku said. He remembered the time he spent with him and Tenko at the sports festival. Whenever he saw Tenko and Izuku, it was like he was seeing himself and Tenya. Of course, he wouldn't grant this selfish request. Thank you, Izuku. Tensei's tears couldn't stop from flowing. I applaud you, hero in training, however. How will you even dash? Stain couldn't finish when the boy was suddenly a few inches away from his face. His twisted and unsightly arm already cocked back for a punch, but at this distance, Stain could see the boy's eyes clearly. There's no mistake about it. He has the same eyes as him, Tamura, eyes with no fear of the void. Then Stain snapped out of it and immediately moved to the side away from the cocked-back superarm. He could hear the concrete crack to 1,000 pieces. Immediately drawing his blades, he turned to the boy and attempted to cut into his skin. But he was shocked to find that the blades simply broke into pieces against the boy's tough skin. A hardening quirk? But doesn't he have a strengthening one? I definitely won't forgive you, Stain, Izuku muttered before sending another unsightly superarm punch. Stain could hear his bones cracking, but still that wasn't what he was thinking about. Hate me if you want, young hero. But I only ask one thing of you, don't ever lose yourself. I can tell you have someone to protect, hold on to them and let them pull you out every time you jump into that void. I went past my limit. My arms are feeling numb. I can't move them at all. My feet too. I don't remember feeling numb before. Did my limbs used to go numb before? Izuku, are you okay? The speaker placed a hand on his shoulder. He forced a smile as he faced him and answered, Why yeah, I just can't move 60% of my body at the moment. Tenya's face showed concern. Then the three of them heard footsteps running towards them. Tensei and Tenya both turned alert. Izuku's body was too numb to even tense up. Fortunately, it was only Shoto.
Shoto-kun.
How did you find us? Tenya asked. Shoto looked at the situation first and was shocked to find the hero killer being tied up by Tensei. The hero killer? You guys defeated him? Shoto exclaimed. Tenya shook his head. We would have been done for if Izuku hadn't arrived. He defeated Stain by himself. But now, he's all numb from using his quirk at a stronger level. I'm not all numb, just my arms and feet. Izuku corrected Tenya in a joking manner. Shoto sighed and shook his head as he kneeled down. I'll carry him on my back. No, it was my fault anyway. So I should dash. You're injured too, Tenya. I'll carry Izuku. Just take care of yourself. Shoto insisted. Once Izuku was on Shoto's back, he asked, How did you even find us? Shoto-kun, I heard familiar shockwaves from here. The ones you usually make when you fight. Shoto answered. I bet your brother will be mad. Shoto pointed out. Hehe. Yeah. When Tensei finished tying up Stain, the four of them started heading to the main streets where they'll eventually meet up again with the other pro heroes. Tenko pushed the metal door open to a roof deck. He's arrived at the rendezvous point. It's already past 6. Kurogiri should arrive any minute now. But where's Stain? The Nomus should have provided enough distraction. Tenko felt some displacement of air and immediately knew who just arrived. Kurogiri. Have you seen Stain? He's currently not in the vicinity. Kurogiri answered. Tenko rolled his eyes under his hand mask, and as he did, something caught his eye. When he took a second look, his eyes were full of shock and rage. Izuku! Izuku? What the hell are you doing here? Tenko saw Izuku, almost asleep while being carried by Shoto. Along with them were Tenya, Tensei, and Stain tied up. Stain? The sight of the tied-up Stain made him even angrier. TCH? Damn it, that's when they heard the sound of wings flapping. Shoto couldn't help but look over to Izuku every now and then. He seems so tired, he's probably fighting sleep even as he thought. Izuku, are you still awake? Shoto asked. Barely. Being on Shoto-kun feels so comfortable. Izuku mumbled. Don't worry. We'll get you to an ambulance soon and you'll get taken care of. Tensei said in an assuring voice. Izuku simply nodded. That's when they heard the sound of wings flapping. They all looked behind them to see a winged Nomu flying towards them. Get down! Tensei yelled. Maybe they were late to react or Izuku was just in a higher position, but it doesn't change the fact that the Nomu was able to grab Izuku. Izuku! They all yelled. From afar, Tenko watched as the Nomu grabbed his little brother from his friends. What the hell are you doing, Nomu? Although it's just a theory, it was probably because of its programming. Obey the orders of your master. Protect your master with your own life. The Nomu recognized the heroes as the enemy and Izuku as its master. That's why it took the boy from them. The group was too occupied by Izuku's sudden kidnapping that they hadn't noticed Stain escaping from his restraints using a hidden blade. Using the Nomu's blood that dripped on Tensei's costume, Stain was able to paralyze the Nomu. Even with his earlier wounds, he was still able to maneuver easily to catch the boy. Everyone, A villain went this way. Did you see it? The group looked at the speaker. It was Gang Orca along with Endeavor. Gang Orca, Izuku. He's Tenya was immediately cut off by a blood-curdling voice. /N. Did you guys see what I did there? You are all fakes. Stain immediately captured the attention of the people present. The hero killer? Endeavor and Gang Orca were shocked. Kugo immediately noticed Izuku on the floor behind Stain. Izuku, this society is full of fakes. Heroes who only become heroes for fame and villains who only become villains for the sake of pettiness. There are only a few other than All Might that are true to their cause. Including this boy and Tamura, the heroes and heroes in training flinched. Even after having been beaten by Izuku with his full power, he still has enough energy to release such a powerful murderous aura, practically freezing both pro and training heroes in their place. If it means creating the ideal world of heroes and villains, then I would gladly purge all the fakes. It got quiet all of a sudden. Wait, why am I on the ground? Izuku tried to open his eyes, only to be greeted by a standing still Stain. He would have reacted more if his body was up to the task, but at the moment he can only look on. Meanwhile, on top of a roof, Tenko couldn't help but feel relieved. He has no idea why that Nomu suddenly decided to grab Izuku, but he was glad that Stain immediately took action when the heroes didn't. From the looks of it, Stain probably fought against Izuku and lost. But if that's the case, why did he save Izuku? He even said that Izuku was true to his cause along with him. Did he find something in the boy? Is it possible he figured something out? He'll need to put more thought into this later. In the meantime, Kurogiri, get Stain. We're done here. Kurogiri, of course, complied, and the heroes were left wide-eyed as they watched black mist surround the hero killer and disappear with him. The next day, Izuku and Tenya were still at the hospital. Since Stain wasn't actually caught, there were no news reported about him. Tensei and Kugo also took the blame for Tenya and Izuku's reckless actions, so there weren't any major repercussions for the young heroes in training, only a session of Chief Tsurigami lecturing them. Afterwards, Kugo and Tensei left to make their official reports about the incident, leaving Tenya and Izuku to rest at the hospital. Tenya was mostly fine, but he will need to undergo surgery to fix his arm that was injured. With Izuku, however, after a closer look at Izuku's limbs, it would appear that he actually broke his bones. Izuku was simply looking down at his arms inside casts. Tenya couldn't help but feel bad as he watched such a sad scene. It was his fault after all. Izuku, I'm really sorry, Tenya told his current roommate. Izuku looked at his classmate and gave a smile. Don't be. I chose to save you and Tensei. I wouldn't have forgiven myself if either one of you died and the other has to suffer for it, Izuku told him. Tenya bit his lips. He wants to apologize once more, but he knows Izuku will simply deny him the chance to take the blame. The two boys' attention were swiftly caught by the sound of the door opening and the arrival of a bald, old man with weird goggles. He was wearing a white coat, so Tenya assumed he was a doctor. Dr. Ujiko, you're here, Izuku exclaimed. Izuku, do you know this man? Tenya asked. Izuku nodded. Yeah. He's a friend of my dad and is our family doctor. Izuku answered. Hisashi-kun sent me here after he got the call informing him about Izuku here. The hospital allowed me in since I am officially Izuku-kun's physician. The doctor explained as he walked towards Izuku. TSK. But to think that the next time I would have to check on you because of your quirk is during your studies to be a hero. I suppose that's expected. Dr. Ujiko chuckled. Heroes always have to push themselves to the limit whenever they face off a powerful villain. Even when they know it could destroy them, if it means saving one person, they'll do it. That's what makes them annoying. The doctor commented as he was checking on Izuku's limbs. So even Izuku's doctor dislikes heroes? Tenya was thinking. For Izuku to want to become a hero, even when he's surrounded by people who don't like them. I almost forgot. Dr. Ujiko said all of a sudden. Your brother wanted to talk to you. He's probably waiting for us to call him. He couldn't reach you, so he asked me to call him once I'm here, the doctor said as he took out his phone and started dialing Tenko. Dr. Ujiko handed over the phone to Izuku. As the phone was ringing, Izuku put it on loudspeaker. If Tenko is calling after he got injured, Then there's no doubt there'll be a lot of angry shouting. Then finally they got an answer. "Hey, Tenko, what on earth were you doing in Hosu?" Tenko started. Ingenium had asked Gang Orca to come and he brought me along. We didn't know the League of Villains were going to. Goodness, Izuku. I just left and you already got hurt because of your hero studies. Maybe I should have pulled you out of hero studies after all. Tenko said in the other line. Tenko, please. Izuku felt something break inside of him. Is this it? Is this finally it? He'll have to quit? Now, Tenko. Dr. Ujiko interjected. I don't think it's fair that Izuku will have to quit because of something coincidental. He was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Being a hero hopeful means having to act like a hero on the road to become one. Even if it means breaking a few bones along the way. Isn't that right, Izuku-kun? Dr. Ujiko looked at the greenette. Izuku simply nodded. Tenko was silent. But of course, I would still advise you to refrain from breaking any of your limbs. Dr. Ujiko added. Tenko grumbled and finally agreed. Fine, but my decision still stands. Next time you get hurt and it's while your teachers are around, then you're out of hero studies. Then he hung up. So stubborn, Hisashi-kun's eldest. Just like him, I suppose. Dr. Ujiko commented. Thank you, Dr. Ujiko. Izuku smiled. HM? Don't mention it. I just said what Hisashi-kun would have told your brother. The doctor replied. But Dr. Ujiko, I was wondering. Izuku suddenly said. Well, why did my bones break? I mean, the last time I used my quirk at full power, my bones only weakened but they didn't fully break. So why did they break this time? Izuku asked. Translation. Full power means every strengthening and reinforcement quirk in his arsenal. Dr. Ujiko sighed and explained. The last time you used your quirk was 2 years ago, correct? Well, since then, your quirk has gotten more powerful. Meanwhile, your body has remained at a more or less stagnant state. Compared to how much power your quirk has accumulated and your body's current state, it would be at least 5 more decades before you can ever use your quirk like you could 2 years ago. Translation. Power refers to the quirks Izuku has gathered. 5 more decades? Izuku was distraught. Dr. Ujiko isn't one for exaggeration. If he says it would take Izuku 50 years before he could use his quirk again, then he means it. I recommend not trying to use full power at all. If you ask me, might as well just change your quirk. The doctor told him. Translation. Use a different quirk combo, damn it. Miss Author. The room became quiet for 30 seconds or so, but you can feel a thin air of dread in that half minute. I'll be taking my leave now. I'll leave this medicine here. You should take it after every meal. You should rest here until it's time to go back to school. Your bones should be fully healed by then. Dr. Ujiko told Izuku as he placed a pill bottle on the table beside the boy's bed. I hope to see you soon, Izuku-kun. Dr. Ujiko said on his way to the door. But not too soon. He then added. Izuku simply smiled. A black portal opened where Dr. Ujiko walked out. Tenko gave him a side-eye. Then he stood up and faced the old man. So? How's Stain? Tenko asked. Izuku managed to break half his ribcage, and they ended up puncturing his lungs. He's currently in a coma, but he should be fine. It's amazing that he survived. He took on 2 of Izuku's full power punch head-on and was still able to move afterwards to save the boy. That man has amazing willpower. He could have been a great hero, the doctor answered. Tenko could only respond with an annoyed TCH. Izuku shouldn't have been there in the first place. Tenko thought. And Izuku? Tenko asked. He'll be fine. I left the fast healing pills for him. By the time he's back at school, he should have taken the pill with the new reinforcement quirk. Dr. Ujiko told him. Such a stubborn boy. Choosing to use the combination of quirks that replicates All Might's quirk, even though it's destroying him. I just hope the day never comes when he has to learn it all the hard way. It would be a waste for the boy not to get the chance to. Don't even think about it, Daruma. Tenko's voice was threatening. It had the tone of a cold-blooded killer. The doctor chuckled. Ho ho, so protective. I want Izuku to live a normal and happy life. I won't let you drag him into our criminal business. That's what you said the first time Hisashi and I mentioned the idea of the 2 of you training to become his successors. You were only 8 if I recall correctly. Daruma reminisced. In my opinion, Izuku is the best candidate to succeed Hisashi since he has his quirk. And with the right training, we can probably have it evolve into something more powerful. Daruma went into a monologue. Hisashi's quirk started out as only having the ability to steal a limited number of quirks, but then all for one evolved into what it is now. A quirk that allows the user to steal and store as much quirks as they want. Since Izuku inherited the evolved version of Hisashi's quirk, it's possible it can evolve once more. Maybe a version that can steal quirks from afar, perhaps? Shut up, Daruma. I already warned you. Tenko stopped the old man's thoughts. If you ever try to include my brother in your research, you'll be facing me. Tenko stood his ground, but Daruma only found it more entertaining. Such a foolish boy, Daruma thought. Then the television in the bar turned on, with Hisashi on video chat. That's enough. The three men in the room turned to look at the screen. His face is still 90% scar, unfortunately, and he's still on life support. Training Eri to use her quirk properly will take time, after all. Ujiko-san, if you're done telling Tenko what he wants to know, then I'm expecting you to return right away. Hisashi's voice was stern and serious. Daruma only scoffed to this. Kurojairi, open a gate for me. Daruma ordered the man standing as the bartender. Kurojairi complied. Tenko glared at the old man as he left. And Tenko? Yes, Dad. Please stop arguing with the doctor. You know he's done so much for our family. And one day you'll have to work with him. It would make things easier if you establish friendly relations. Hisashi reasoned. I'll start getting friendly as soon as he stops eyeing Izuku. Tenko. Hisashi was annoyed. Tenko simply averted gazes. Hisashi sighed. Fine. I'll talk to him. But I'm expecting you to cooperate with him as well. Then the video chat ended. Tenko sat on his seat at the counter. He grimaced and then pounded the counter. He messed up his hair in frustration as he made unintelligible, annoyed sounds. Kurojairi simply looked on as he watched Tenko's more or less quiet frustration reach its climax and finally die down. Kurojairi, the new assignment I gave you, how is it? Tenko asked in a calm manner. I have found a number of individuals that met your criteria. At first, they weren't interested, but later reconsidered after a peculiar video came to light. Kurojairi answered. Video? What video? Tenko asked, confused. Kurojairi switched on the television and changed it to show the video. Tenko was left wide-eyed at what he saw. It's been over a month since All Might had picked Katsuki to be his successor. He's only had one for all for about a week or so, only having received it after the sports festival, for obvious reasons. Katsuki's entire work studies was focused on him getting used to the new stronger firepower of his explosion. And for that, they had to go to the countryside where it was less likely for him to accidentally harm anybody other than himself. He had to relearn how to control the output of his explosions, as even his usual weaker explosions only meant to intimidate his opponents are now equal to his former usual average explosions. In addition to his quirk's new firepower, he's also gotten a boost in strength and speed, which fortunately only needed 1 week to get used to, in contrast to explosion, which they suspect will need months if he wants to be able to use it like he used to pre-one for all. In addition, it doesn't take long before Katsuki's arms start aching from using his quirk. I want to make you my successor. That was what All Might said to him. It was an offer of a lifetime, the chance to train under your idol hero and become the next generation's symbol of peace. Who would pass that out? Which is why he didn't correct All Might when he thought that Katsuki was a good candidate. Beating an enemy worth no points to save a girl? No, he just wanted to prove he was much better than those who were running away. He just wanted to be number one. He wasn't hero material. He was even a bully to the kids he thought were lower than him. He challenged and tried to kick down anyone he saw who could potentially surpass him. Like he did with Izuku when they were 10/n. At least, I think they were 10, although it could be when they were 11. I lost the notebook where I listed off the SOS timeline, so he wasn't a good person. He acknowledges that now, which is why he's striving to be better, to be someone worthy of becoming All Might's successor. He may have lied to get this position, but he will prove himself. You guys got to encounter the hero killer, right? How was it? Katsuki's attention was caught by the words of Dunce's face. The hero killer? Right. There was that video going around the internet, it had our classmates in it. How did you know? The police and heroes said it wouldn't go public that we faced Stain. A certain nerd immediately went on the defense. Wait, so you don't know yet, Izuku-kun? For Eyes asked. Someone uploaded a video of the night of the Hosu incident. Although, the authorities have no idea who. Icy Hot explained as he walked towards the nerd and Four Eyes. Come to think of it, these three rich kids have formed their own group, haven't they? Katsuki thought. /n. He. Rich kids. It's gotten viral since it got uploaded. Dunceface said as he pulled out his phone and, presumably, took out the video to show to the nerd. The nerd's face suddenly went pale like he'd seen a ghost. Why though? Izuku, what's wrong? Icy Hot asked the nerd. It's just, I don't remember most of what happened that night. Only that stain escaped. So seeing that the Nomu almost got away with me, when I was unconscious, it sends shivers up my spine. The nerd explained. He still sounds like the spineless kid I met at the park all those years ago. Katsuki couldn't help but reminisce. But don't worry about me. Otherwise, I'm fine. The nerd immediately backtracked, and Katsuki couldn't help but let out a scoff that the group heard. The nerd flinched and simply looked away, while Icy Hot and Four Eyes stared daggers at the explosive lad. Katsuki may be trying to be nicer, but one can't really help letting out such reactions. Right? Aizawa-sensei? Shoto looked back at the student behind him. It was obvious that the dark purple-haired boy was a little nervous. Don't worry about it, kid. You'll be placed as far away from each other as possible. You just need to avoid each other to the best of your ability. Shoto told the student. Like what they agreed upon, Shoto went inside the classroom first to inform the class of the new arrangements. Before internships, the class, save for Izuku, was informed that Shinso would be placed under my supervision to decide whether or not he deserves to be transferred to hero studies. As our class has been one student short, it was decided that Shinso would be transferred to our class. The dark purple-haired boy heard from outside the classroom. He was waiting for you to show what you can do. The words of All Might rung in the boy's head once more. Shinso clenched his fists. He'd been thinking about what the pro-hero told him, and it made him realize that he had been foolish. He was angry at the people who looked at him like he was some kind of villain, all because his quirk was villainous. He had always vowed he'd prove them wrong somehow, but it was only after his battle against Izuku and All Might pointing out what he missed that he realized he wasn't even doing anything. He wasn't working to better his other abilities and have been overconfident in his quirk. I'll prove to them that I can become a hero with my quirk. He'd been telling himself this so much that he forgot that heroes don't always rely on their quirk. But not anymore. Over the span of his internship under Eraserhead, he had worked to build up his body and to learn basic martial arts. Even his family pointed out how much he's changed since then. All right, now that Izuku has moved seats, Shinso, please enter the classroom. The dark purple-haired boy heard and complied. He went to the front of the class and bowed, introducing himself once more. Good morning. My name is Shinso Hitoshi, and from this day on, I will be your classmate. 1A's next class was with All Might, a rescue training race through Ground Gamma. For the first group, they had Katsuki, Shinso, Tsuyu, Siro, and Tenya. After this roundup, the class immediately started to comment who they thought will win. It has to be Tsuchan, right? She can easily use her tongue to move around. So can Hanta with his quirk. I think Katsuki has the most chance to win since he has the most control in his quirk and movements. Katsuki gulped. Toshinori noticed the young boy become slightly phased. He and Gran Torino had advised him to refrain from using his quirk until he has complete control of it once again. Is it really okay to ask him to stop using his quirk in class for a while? Is that Aizawa-sensei's capture scarf? Denki suddenly asked Shinso, making the latter flinch as he wasn't expecting anyone to talk to him just yet. Yeah. Aizawa-sensei had one made for me to include in my hero uniform, although I haven't quite mastered it like him. The purple-haired teenager replied. Denki simply nodded and let out some humming sounds. I'm Denki, by the way. The yellow-haired boy reached out his hand. Shinso. I know. Your quirk is the mind control one, right? Yeah. It's really cool. Thanks. There was an awkward silence for a bit before Denki asked, Hey, what happened with you and Izuku? Shinso flinched and averted gazes, and Denki immediately realized that he was overstepping. I'm sorry. I was just curious and I didn't know it was a sensitive topic for you. Well, now you know. Shinso coldly dismissed Denki as he put on his voice-changing mask, and especially made Gadget for him to fully utilize his quirk in missions, although it wasn't really needed in this exercise. A/N. As of writing this chapter, Shinso's mask has only made an official appearance in the manga, but I reckon we'll get to see it soon in Season 5 of the anime. The first group started their race. As expected, Tsuyu and Hanta were the leads and Tenya had a rough time going through such a parkour-type field. They were slightly impressed by Shinso who, although incomparable to the agility of the likes such as Tsuyu, was progressing through the training ground in record speed. Not the same could be said about Katsuki, though. Everyone was slightly underwhelmed by the fact that he wasn't using his quirk to mobilize at all. They noticed that he had gotten a lot faster, but it seemed like he was holding back. People with powerful quirks that don't use them are weak and useless. A certain memory from 5 years ago rung in the head of a certain greenette, and he clenched his fists. In the end, Hanta came first, followed by Tsuyu, but only by a second, and Tenya came at third. Katsuki came at a disappointing 4th place, and Shinso placed last. As the 5 students were trying to catch their breaths, Katsuki could feel a glare tearing through him. He could probably try to look back and identify the person, but he already had a good guess who it was. It was the same look he got back during the sports festival. And it was the same look he got from the older brother of the kid he bullied at the park 5 years ago. Thinking about the two of them with those eyes, it gave him chills. Who could have uploaded the video, Kurogiri? Tenko asked as he continued to pace back and forth while pulling at his own hair. Izuku was mentioned right alongside my villain name. What if someone pieces something out? What if someone figures out Izuku is related to me? What if the heroes are the ones to figure it out? Why the hell did Stain suddenly name drop me in a sentence with Izuku? Tenko continued to pace back and forth, and now scratching his neck and arms as he grew even more panicked. All Kurogiri could do was follow Tenko as he crossed the room for the 200th time now? Or was it the 300th? Not that he could do anything. He was only tasked to watch over Tenko and assist him in his endeavors. It's not his job to worry about the second son. Then a knock from the door quickly captured the attention of the 2 men, although Tenko was mostly annoyed. And then they heard another knock, which absolutely brought Tenko's blood pressure higher. Who the fuck is it? Tenko couldn't help but yell. It's Jiren. You said to knock and wait for permission before I enter, so I knocked him waiting for permission to enter. A man's voice answered from the other side of the door. Tenko simply gave a TCH as he reached for his hand mask and sat down in front of the counter. Kurogiri, taking the hint, called for Jiren to enter.
Yo.
I could hear Shigaraki-san's voice on my way up here. Were you two fighting or something? Jiren asked as he took the seat beside Tenko. It's none of your business. Tenko bluntly shot down Jiren's attempt at being casual. Hot-tempered and yet so cold. Jiren commented, anyway, here are the lists and profiles of the people interested in your league's recruitment. Jiren said as he pulled out an A5 brown envelope from his jacket. I gotta say, what an interesting group of individuals, from high school murderers to serial killers. That little video was quite the advertisement. Did you guys upload it? Tenko clenched his fist and was fighting the urge to kill this man right then and there. Kurogiri, fortunately, read Tenko and pulled Jiren away from him. I apologize for Tamura's attitude today. It hasn't been a good one for him. Kurogiri explained as Jiren handed over the envelope. Hey, no problem. It's a pleasure doing business with the League of Villains. Don't sweat it, Jiren said. Anyway, I'll be off. As soon as Jiren was gone, Tenko immediately removed his mask, and with eyes overflowing with rage and madness, he said, I swear, Kurogiri, if I ever find out who leaked that annoying video, I'll make sure I kill them personally. Shinso walked into the busy cafeteria and looked around, looking for his ex-classmates from Class C. He feels more comfortable with them. When he finally found them, he raised his hand and waved. They waved back. Bento in hand, Shinso started making his way over to the Class C students. But that was when someone bumped him, making him let go of his bento. Thankfully, it didn't open and spill to the floor. He felt like the person who bumped into him was going to fall, so on reflex, he grabbed the person's shoulders to help them get their balance back. How lucky! Because of that little video with Stain, 1A got even more popular. Well, you'll see. Class 1B will, one day, be even more popular than Dash. The blonde sociopath-looking boy was swiftly made unconscious after just one hit from a ginger girl's quirk. I'm really sorry about him, Izuku. Izuku, I'll make sure he gets a talking to. The ginger apologized. But then she finally noticed Shinso, and she went pale. Izuku was a little confused as to what made Itsuka freeze. So he looked back. His eyes went wide and his face became as white as a sheet. At this point, Shinso was also taken back by what's happening that he forgot that he was still holding Izuku's arms. The both of them were too scared and too shocked to move that they were in a practically perpetual state of frozen in place. /N. I don't know how to make this sound more scary than funny face with tears of joy. Tenya, fortunately, pulled Izuku away and out of Shinso's clutches. Shinso wanted to say something and apologize, his mouth already open to spout a word, but nothing left. No voice was heard, and he closed it back again. Shinso turned his back and went to pick up his bento from the floor, then he went back on his way to Class C. As he walked, he felt like the whole cafeteria was staring daggers at him. Felt like before UA again. Are you okay, Izuku? Shoto asked his friend as Tenya helped the greenette to a seat.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Izuku answered while pinching the bridge of his nose. He took a deep breath and exhaled. Anyway, Izuku changed the subject. What are you guys' plans for the upcoming final exams? His friends simply went along with it. I'll probably just cram till the last minute and hope for the best. Achiko, same for me, Karo. Suchan, some quick skimming, most likely. Shoto, that last answer by Shoto quickly set off Tenya into an air-chopping sermon about how he shouldn't be taking the finals so lightly, and it made the rest of the group chuckle. Izuku, the entire group looked at the speaker. Yeah, Itsuka? The greenette asked with a smile. Are you okay now? You don't want to go to the clinic? The ginger asked. Yes, I'm fine now. Thank you for your concern. Itsuka then eased up. Thank goodness. I just want to apologize again for Monoma's behavior. Not all of us at 1B think like him. Our two classes get compared a lot, so some have made up this sense of rivalry between our classes. Itsuka explained. It's okay. It's good to have a sense of rivalry. It makes us want to get better. But I hope we get to work more together. The greenette replied with a smile. That made Itsuka smile a little as well. In that case, this information may be useful to you guys at 1A. Itsuka's words piqued the group's interest. The teachers were keeping what the practical exams will be a secret, but we actually heard from the second years that the practicals may be similar to the practicals of the entrance exam, meaning we might end up facing robots. Itsuka explained. I hope this can help you prepare. I'll go join my classmates now. Itsuka waved by then walked away. All right, you're all dismissed. Please don't get into any trouble and go straight home. Aizawa told them as he walked out of the room and closed the door behind him. Immediately, the 1A students that looked like they were preparing to leave went back to their seats. In front, Izuku and Momo walked towards the teacher's table, right? So as we all know, we only have a week left before the final exams. Izuku started the meeting. Some of you had voiced your worries earlier today, and Momo had suggested to set up some kind of study party. Those who asked to join were, Izuku brought out his journal and read off the names he listed. Denki, Mina, Rikido, Mashareo, Kyoka, and Hanta. All 6 of them nodded. Of course, anyone else who wants to join, please just approach me. Momo added. All right, second point of this meeting. Earlier today, Itsuka Kendo, the president of Class 1B, told me that the practical portion of our final exams may be having to fight against the same robots that we faced during the entrance exam. After hearing this, me and Izuku talked and decided that it may be beneficial if we set up the study party at his place, so that we can also use their training hall for those who also wish to train for the practicals. Momo continued. The plan is to have a sleepover at my place for the rest of the week leading up to the exam, and anyone can join whenever. Izuku explained. Training hall? How rich are they? For the next 10 minutes, the whole class talked about this study party. At one point, someone asked if it'll start the next day, which Izuku replied with, if your parents are okay with it, we can definitely start today. I had already called home earlier and asked if they could have about 7 to 10 meals prepared. Achiko, Tenya, and Tsuyu already asked to join earlier, and Momo's parents were already fine with her going. I can ask our chauffeur to stop by your places and we can all go together. Momo suggested. It's like they're both slapping us with their riches. But they're both too nice. We can't possibly get mad. Shinso looked over at the cluster of his classmates that has gathered around the two class leaders. He frowned and stood up. He grabbed his bag and headed towards the door. The whole class went quiet the moment he opened the door. But was it the door that shushed them or the sudden realization that, oh right, he's also in their class? Whatever. It's not like he wants to be included in that study group of theirs. He'll just get stronger on his own. Only 2 more days till their final exams. Thanks to their study party, the whole class has been showing results. Without a doubt, everyone in 1A will pass their exams. Another session will be held tonight at the Midoriya household. Wait! Izuku exclaimed, making his friends stop. Izuku opened up his bag and scrounged around for something, his face looking a bit more worried the longer the object was not found. What's wrong, Izuku? Achiko asked. I think I forgot my hero journal back at the classroom, he said as he continued to look for it inside his bag. After realizing the notebook really wasn't there, he decided, I'll just go get it. We'll go with you, Achiko suggested. No, thank you. I'll go get it by myself. Shouldn't take long. I'll meet you guys at the gate, Izuku said as he ran back to their classroom. How could I be so forgetful? I can't believe I forgot my hero journal like that. He sighed as he walked in the hallway back from their classroom. Could it be that the stress of the final exams is getting to me? Izuku tugged on his chin. Well, considering the stakes, I guess I would be a little nervous. Going camping with my friends and classmates plus training for hero studies. That would be amazing. I definitely wouldn't want to miss out. Izuku's eyes sparkled and he smiled to himself. At the same time he was walking through a certain hallway, Shinso and Aizawa-sensei are having their regularly scheduled, actually, just whenever it's needed, meeting in Aizawa-sensei's office. Their regularly scheduled meetings actually ended after hero studies ended. After that, their meetings were more sporadic, more similar to the secret meetings All Might also has with Katsuki. The two teachers have no idea about the other one's secret meetings, though. Most students had no idea that after classes, Shinso would often meet up with Aizawa-sensei in his office just to talk about the latter's frets, which is why the name Izuku heard as he walked along this certain hallway sent shock and chill down his spine. Shinso, why haven't you been using your quirk? Shouldn't you be training with it as well? Izuku froze at the mention of Shinso. How exactly can I train it? It literally just needs the other guy to respond. I just need to provoke my foe, right? Training my body is much more important. Shinso answered, that's not what I meant. You deflected the question again. There was a pause. Is this because of what happened to Izuku? Aizawa asked. Izuku flinched. Shinso stayed silent. It stayed quiet for a few more seconds, then Shinso finally responded. If you're worried about how I'll do in the practical exam, don't worry, I can handle it. Izuku heard the dark purplet get off his seat. Acting quickly, he ran back to a corner without making a sound. The door to Aizawa's office opened and out walked the dark purplet. See you tomorrow, sensei. Shinso waved as he walked away. The door was heard closing. For what felt like hours, Izuku stayed still and silent. Though he was still, his mind was racing. Izuku clenched his fist, then he went on his way. In your practical exams, you will be facing against your teachers. Widened eyes and exclaims of shock and worry were brought upon by the announcement unto the class of 1A. No way. We thought we were going to fight the robots. Fighting pro-heroes. No way can we win. Before you lot start panicking, Aizawa-sensei spoke. Please be aware that we will give you handicaps. Even I'm not that sadistic. Shoto thought to himself. /N. You must be thinking of Kalego-sensei, the I will watch my students die and sip tea while doing it teacher. To the shock of the students, the principal suddenly jumped out of Aizawa-sensei's capture scarf. Has he been there this whole time? Due to the recent surge of villain attacks, it has become imperative that we update your exams, make it more accurate. Your class is the first to undertake this new format. Nizu explained. You will form pairs and each pair will face the teacher assigned to them. There are 2 ways to pass. One is to handcuff their teacher, and the other is for one of them to escape the battlefield. Nizu finished. Then a hand was raised. Everyone's attention was on that person. Have you already paired us? Yeah. Is it possible to be paired with a specific person? Everyone was left speechless. It was a stupid question. This is an exam meant to test them. If he was given the choice to choose who he'd want to pair with, and he chooses someone who he can work easily with, and has the perfect quirk to work alongside his, then, despite this, Shoto decided to entertain the idea. All right then, Izuku, who would you like to be paired with? Sir, I would like to be paired with Shinso. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the story. Let me know your feedback in the comments, and tell me when I should release the next part. Until then, peace.